How is the book selling? Is it doing well?
It's doing okay. I wrote it with the Italian journalist Carlo Bonini and Manuel Delia, and
Yes.
we're part of the story of the book. I think we're working on a new edition. Part of the story of the book is that we think that Jorgen Fenech read it and got on his yacht and did a runner. Now, we don't know for sure, but it's exciting at least to be part of the pressure.
Yes.
The other thing about writing the book was that we followed in the footsteps of Daphne Caruana Galizia, and she was an amazingly brave woman.
Absolutely.
And, Manuel and Carlo and I, we all do, respectively, big stories in our own fields. This woman was extraordinary. She was incredibly brave and amazing, and I'm still in awe of her.
Absolutely, many people are. I'd like to refer to your interview with the former Prime Minister Joseph Muscat. And obviously that was, I believe that was 2 years ago now, John, right?
Yeah.
2 years on from when you met him, can you give us your thoughts? Because you're obviously following the story. We've seen his resignation at the end of last year.
Well, he was the Artful Dodger when I met him, and he's still the Artful Dodger because he's, to my money, he's got serious questions to answer about perverting the course of justice. Now, listen, you know, I'm a simple man, and I was brought up with lots of movies like the telly-series The Sweeney. There's the cops and there's the robbers. In Malta, it turns out that the cops are the robbers, and the robbers are the robbers, and the cops go on holiday with the robbers. It's extraordinary what I've been reading, you know, and the number of leaks of the murder inquiry back to the people who, there seems to be strong evidence that the people who actually commissioned the murder were kept informed of what was going on. For example, there's strong evidence that the three men who are accused of carrying out the murder, the three assassins, they deny it, but they were tipped off about when they were going to get arrested. Yes. And that's because of a leak, because the police inquiry was being leaked, it seems, through the Prime Minister's office. Yes. That's extraordinary. That's extraordinary. I mean, you know, visit Malta, the Maltese Tourist Board, are they going to rewrite their stuff? Come to Malta, the land where the cops are the robbers too. I mean, it's very, very bad, this. And the new Prime Minister seems not to have got a grip on the scale of the corruption that Daphne identified. And the number of people, Keith Schembri is number one, but also there's questions about the Artful Dodger, Joseph Muscat.
Yes.
I don't understand what they're doing at Liberty. Yes. I think they should be being investigated actively by the police, and they and I think that if this was a fair and reasonable jurisdiction, they should be facing criminal charges now. So it's extraordinary what's happened, and this information comes out, and it's unbelievable.
Yes.
The police were tipping off the assassins. What the hell is going on?
May I refer to, John, your former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, and his endorsement of our former Prime Minister, Joseph Muscat. What are your thoughts about that? Because his endorsement happened after Daphne's allegations were published.
Well, I thought that was evidence of corruption by the former British Prime Minister. I couldn't understand. I mean, he doesn't. He's left office for what, more than a decade. He doesn't go around boosting left of centre politicians very much. He's got a track record, in fact, of playing the kind of smooth-sayer, being a bit of a PR man for a number of rather dodgy regimes. Now, on a lot of the questions, for example, Brexit, I agree with Tony Blair, and he's still, much of what he says has got good common sense. On Malta, he's entirely on the wrong side, and he was wrong to endorse Joseph Muscat because at that point, Daphne had broken her great story that $1 million bung had been paid by the royal family of the fabulously corrupt regime in Azerbaijan to a woman who so happened to be the Prime Minister's wife. Now, everybody, all concerned, deny any wrongdoing, but I found it astonishing that the British Prime Minister should endorse the Artful Dodger Joseph Muscat in this way. I found it astonishing, and I thought that there was something weird going on. Now, there's some evidence that Tony Blair is acting in some official or semi-official capacity as a PR man for President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan. Now, the guy is a rich crook and a tyrant, and he locks up the opposition and locks up journalists like Daphne and me, and it's entirely wrong. So I don't know what Tony Blair was doing, but for me, it stank of, it smelled very fishy.
Mr. Blair is some form of consultant for the Azerbaijan regime also. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, yes, there's evidence pointing to that. I don't know, but I thought it was a weird thing for Tony Blair to say, and corrupt. There's no question in my mind whatsoever, or in the mind of anybody who understands what happened to Daphne.
Thank you very much.
The government of Joseph Muscat, the Artful Dodger, saw her as a target, that they were running a kind of massive criminal conspiracy. And there's a whole series of sort of dodgy riders, people like Hanley and Partners, Pilatus Bank, Ali Sadra, who is or isn't going to be freed. We don't know what the Americans are up to. I don't understand that either. But these people have big questions to answer. Most importantly, the murder inquiry has shown that there were leaks from inside the Prime Minister's office. That's the evidence. It looks as though it's Keith Schembri tipping off Jorgen Fenech, who appears to be the prime suspect for the man who paid for it. And now there's fresh information that there was a separate allied murder plot, and this was funded by the economics minister, Chris Cardona, who Daphne famously said, with evidence, that he'd been at a brothel when he should have been working for his country, Malta, at an economics conference in Germany. This is amazing. It's amazing. And the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, who's so much of a blancmange, I can't even remember his name, but he's saying, you know, oh, it's all kind of hunky-dory. It's not hunky-dory. It's not good. There is a serious chasm in the rule of law in Malta, and this needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed urgently.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for your time. We could carry on speaking to you. I'd love to. And I wish you a good evening. Thank you. Your comments, Dr. Azzopardi.
I'll conclude by mentioning Chris Cardona. And
yes, that came up very recently.
John did very well to mention Chris Cardona, because having Robert Abela not being able to get rid of his deputy leader, who has been mentioned not once, not twice, not 3 times, but several times, not just this week. Robert Abela, we know, has known about the allegations on Chris Cardona much before he became Prime Minister in January. In January, he was given a police briefing about the state of the investigations. And in January, he was informed about the allegations concerning Chris Cardona and about Loris Kutayer, the police commissioner. Notwithstanding the allegations that he was informed of formally by the police, we know this for a fact, Robert Abela cannot and could not get rid of Chris Cardona from deputy leader of the Labour Party. That means that either Robert Abela is being threatened by Chris Cardona, he's being blackmailed by Chris Cardona, or in some way or other, he cannot, because he has to follow the orders of third parties, he cannot get rid of Chris Cardona from deputy leader. Which leader in any European country keeps cheek by jowl his deputy, his second in command, a person who has been mentioned several times as being involved in the assassination? Just imagine, a sitting minister, then Now the deputy leader of the party in government, having, the allegation is, paid money to kill Daphne Caruana Galizia. And Robert Abela does not get rid of Chris Cardona. So it can only mean either Robert Abela is afraid of Chris Cardona, is threatened by Chris Cardona, or is blackmailed by Chris Cardona. And this is a very important question that each Maltese has a right to ask and has a right to get an answer to.
Thank you, Dr. Azzopardi.